So it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the collaborative DEIS Women in Engineering Inaugural Panel Forum on Navigating the Nexus of Advancing Technology, Inclusivity, and Societal Progress, which is organized by IEEE DEIS Women in Engineering and IEEE DEIS Young Professionals. My name is Neha Satish Hegde, and I'm the chair of DEIS Women in Engineering and also European representative for DEIS Young Professionals. And I'll also be serving as the moderator for this event. As the moderator of this event, I'm thrilled to inform you that the panel forum's primary objective is to bring together leaders and to create a dynamic platform for the convergence of technology, diversity, and engineering excellence by assembling a diverse audience comprising professionals, experts, and emerging talents. The discussion, we will have a very diverse subject of discussion. Throughout this event, we will hear from various speakers who will share their insights and experiences. And we will also have an opportunity to engage in discussions and ask questions to better understand how we can all work towards a more sustainable and progressive society. So before we get started, I would like to remind you all that if you're interested in learning more about the DEIS Women in Engineering or the YP's work and the opportunities that are available, everything would be posted on our social media and our link would be provided shortly in the chat box. So I'll quickly go through a few of the housekeeping rules. As a friendly reminder, we would like to inform you that this panel discussion event is being recorded. To ensure the quality of the call, we kindly request that you mute your line during the presentation. Please be mindful that any questions formulated during the session will be included in the recording and will be accessible to the public. The slides and video will be made available on the DEIS WIE and YP social media websites, and the link will be provided after the event. So we kindly request that you reserve your questions until the end. During the Q&A session, please unmute yourself in an orderly manner to ask your questions or use the raise hand feature to be called upon to speak. Alternatively, you may also use the chat features to post your questions, and don't forget whom you're addressing the question to. So based on the time we have, we will try to answer as many questions as possible. If you encounter any technical issues, please use the chat box to request assistance. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm confident that this will be an engaging and productive event. So let's get started. Our first speaker, I would like to invite Professor Brian Stewart, President of IEEE DEIS. Brian G. Stewart is currently Professor of High Voltage Engineering at the University of Strathclyde, Glasgow, Scotland, UK. His research interests lie in the areas of high voltage engineering, focusing on electrical condition monitoring, partial discharge, insulation diagnostics, high voltage asset management, data analytics, and communication systems. He's currently serving as president of the IEEE Dielectrics and Electrical Insulation Society for 2023, where he's presently overseeing a number of strategic changes within the society's general operation. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you very much for that, Sneha. It's a pleasure being here. I'm going to share my screen, if that's okay with everyone. I can get the right presentation up. Can everyone see that? I hope you can see that, can you?
Yes, yes, we can see
Excellent.
that. Yes.
I'm hoping that I can present it. There we go. Everyone see that? Can everyone see that? No?
Yes, Brian, yes.
As in the presentation mode?
Yes.
Is it in presentation mode? Yeah?
Yeah.
No? I don't know if it's in presentation mode.
It is in presentation.
It's in the presentation.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for that feedback. Thank you very much. What I thought I'd do as president of the society is in this opportunity to give you the context of where we are, particularly with the demographics of the society, and outline really what the function of the society is all about, because that plays a significant part in what I think the Women in Engineering and also what this particular hour session is trying to do. So thanks very much for the opportunity, and then I'll be happy to take questions at the end. Now, I've only got 10 minutes, so I'm probably going to hopefully keep to that if I can. I want to just have an outline of what I'm going to do. I'm going to share a little bit about the field of interest so that we all understand what the DEIS field of interest is. Then we'll look at some demographic statistics, which might be interesting for everybody. Then we'll talk about how the community of DEIS is supposed to share innovation and engage to understand how these things happen. And lastly, we'll look at the DEIS future strategy that I'm hoping that can be finalized later this year, but also is already being implemented across various sections of the Dielectrics and Electrical Installation Society. So the first thing is, what are we all about as a society? And of course, we're all about dielectrics and electrical insulation. Now, I'm not going to read all that out there, but part of our remit is to make sure that we advance the basic science and the applicability of all of these areas of dielectrics and electrical insulation and get that communication out there in some capacity and in some way. So let's look at some demographics. I thought it'd be interesting to pull off the regional demographics we currently have for the DEIS membership. And you can see there we've got the 10 regions, and of course the IEEE are going to be changing these regions pretty soon, but currently the standard format is for these 10 regions with their 10 colours. And you'll notice the regional DEIS membership down on the bottom right of the slide. Region 10, which is Asia and Pacific, and also Region 8, which is Europe and Africa and the Middle East, they are the ones which have got most members. Now, what is interesting is the count by gender that you see at the top. And you can see there that roughly 7.14% of our membership, which is just currently under 2,000, are female. The unknowns, for some reason, they've probably forgotten to click the category or have chosen not to, but I would suspect that in there we've got a combination of males and females, and maybe some people who wish to assign gender neutral, I don't know. But anyway, in there we have something like 120, 130 females that are in the society across all of these regions. Now let's have a look at the demographics for each region. I've taken regions 1 to 6 as combined states region, and you can see there that there are 6.26% females. In region 7, we've got 4.55. In region 8, just over 7. In region 9, which is South America, Latin America, we have got no female assignments. I think that's not probably true, because I do know some personally, but they're probably forgetting to click the gender box on the IEEE membership. So they're in the 6.25 in some way. And then for region 10, which is the Asian Pacific, we've got nearly 10, just under 10% female. Now that's an interesting demographic, because obviously we can't have 50% of across everything, because we don't have that kind of representation yet in our society. And of course it would be great if we did, but we currently at this stage don't have that representation. Now, what about innovation? What about innovation as a society? Now, we need to recognize that as a society doesn't do active research. A society is there to serve the membership of people in the topic area, and to be able to come together as a community to understand how new technologies are working, to give the platform, and we do that through conferences and publications, for people who are doing active research to actually publish it, and we promote it for them through our society activities. Now, when it comes to innovation and reporting innovation and distributing understanding of these two new technologies, part of the remit of our technical committees, and we've got currently 12, is for that function to take place. So for example, of these 12 committees, of which there's aging, diagnostics, discharges, liquid dielectrics, nanodielectrics, numerical methods, outdoor insulation, smart grids, standards, HV systems, functional dielectrics and transportation electrification dielectrics, all of these have got a technical or a main responsibility of collecting new technologies, collecting new innovations, and also understanding the impact of these and communicating that to the society. That's what the function of these technical committees are really about, to make sure that we understand where we're going and what the future directions in all these areas might be, so that we can serve the community, so the community can better understand how to move forward. So, future strategies. Here is what I think some of the discussion points will be when it comes to the panel facing the questions. Well, currently I'm processing a finalized new updated strategy as a society. And as part of that strategy, we have at the last ADCOM started off a new committee on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that committee is all about making sure that everybody in the society that's a member has an equal opportunity to engage in society activities and that no one is excluded. And that leads me on to the second new committee that we're hopefully going to start as of the next ADCOM meeting, which is a volunteer committee. Now, I did propose this at the previous ADCOM, but it didn't get through. It wanted some adjustments and some changes and some further reflection. Now, this new volunteer committee, the primary purpose of this new volunteer committee is to make sure that when positions and activities come along in the society, that everyone again has this equal opportunity of applying for them or wanting to be involved. Now, that leads me back to the diversity, equity, and also inclusive committee. The role of this committee is to make sure that everyone is represented in an appropriate way across the society. So the way that I see it just now is that if we have a significant number of females that are involved in DEIS, we would expect that to be represented across the society. So we do a check to see if that representation is in fact consistent with what our membership is. Now, this is quite a big task because, as you can see there, that we have got lots of people that are involved in society, and I think there are many females who probably could do with joining the society and getting involved in a lot of these activities. So that committee is going to be looking at this equal opportunity, diversity, equity, and inclusion aspect across all committees. Now, I want to thank the DEIS young professionals. They have been extremely effective in the society. Of all the things that I think as a president, and I know that the ADCOM would agree with this as well, the young professionals is a standard bearer for the society. And I can only applaud Matthias and his team, particularly Snea as well, and others that are on this call that have been supportive of moving forward. And without saying too much, I think I've supported this financially quite a bit over the last year. And I think that we're going to see the advantages of this and the impact of that on the society. Now, with this diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'm hoping that we can get the young professionals to be flag bearers on making sure that that equity and diversity and inclusion is included in the society functions. Some other things that future strategy, membership committee. Our goal in a membership committee, or will be and should be, to make sure that we grow up new regional chapters across the world and we expand our DEIS membership. Now, I know, having spoken to Snea and to others, one of the key objectives that we have is to make sure that we can attract more female members. We have got many, as I've said, females who could be joining our society. And we're thinking about mixed membership in terms of mixed society. So you can join more than one society. And maybe some of our female colleagues don't appreciate that. We need to get that message out there that you can be members of more than one society and get a reduced fee as well. Obviously, future involves a number of activities where we can engage in climate change. We can have cross-disciplinary activities and topics at conferences, which is going to be on our strategy. and also an increased DEIS web presence to communicate new DEIS activities. So in terms of innovation, technical innovation, where would these all reside within our society? These are communicated primarily through our publications, but they're also communicated through our technical committees. And therefore, one of the key aspects I'm wanting to make sure we have is that we have diversity, equity, and inclusion across all our technical committees, from vice chair appointments all the way through to membership appointments on these technical committees. And that means that these are discussion forums to understand for a society where we are in these technical areas and how innovation might be extended in the future. But I must stress again that our society is not a research funding society. We don't actively do the technical research. We're the community that takes these, tries to enable initiation and discussion and ideation of things that might be for the future, and then people can understand where we're going, and then that innovation can take place. But as I say, as a community, we don't actually we don't fund any research. We only give direction, strategy, etc., to enable these things to happen. What I'm interested in this panel and the communications that this panel can have is how could we better include these discussions within the DEIS community, particularly the committees themselves and the technical committees. And that would be would certainly be for me, the floor from which these things can take place. And I think I've maybe just got my 10 minutes there, if that's correct. And I'll finish my presentation there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brian. I think these points were very important, and thank you for giving that opening talk and opening the subject about how the future of the DIS is going to look. And I mean, the DIS young professionals are very thankful to you throughout the year, the way how you have supported us. It's not just our efforts, and we have got the equal amount of support from your side, and also thanks to the great leadership of our chair of young professional, Matthew, who has been putting in tremendous amount of efforts. And we will definitely continue this discussion about how we can include more members, especially women, in the DIS, also at the CIDP. Thank you so much once again.
I'm happy to share the slides with everyone, and I'll pass them on to you, Snea, for later on. Sure. But as I say, I'm eager for questions about how we can better integrate that innovation, this ideation within the society. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. So we'll move on to the next speaker. We have the honor of hearing from Dr. Nancy Frost. She's a dielectrics engineer with dual roles as president of Frosty Zap Lab LLC, her dielectric materials R&D testing laboratory, and with Gerome Technologies as the materials engineer. She's focused on investigating aging mechanisms of dielectrics and has given over 100 presentations and courses over the last 2 decades. Dr. Frost has experienced the electrical insulation business from the points of view of vendors, customers, utilities, and manufacturers. She has had the unique opportunity to see many motor and generator insulation system designs and manufacturing styles, as well as the variety of aging techniques. Dr. Nancy Frost, we are ready to hear from you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. And you guys can all hear me okay? Great.
Yes.
Now, I did not prepare any slides, which is unusual for me. I'm usually also organized and I have to have slides. But I decided this one for 10 minutes was going to be more of a conversation with you. And I actually like to see your faces on this as well. So you heard a little blurb about who I am. I've been in the industry for a long time, and many of you know me, and I apologize if I don't remember your names, but I often remember faces better than anything. So thank you very much for the invite to this and for the opportunity to speak. And I'm going to kind of take a different tack than Brian did. And first, I want to say it is very important to be in more than one society. I'm in about 5 different societies and about 6 different standards working groups. And it is that connectivity that actually makes that conversations with everybody that's making my career at the late end of my career even stronger. Is I'm bringing a dielectrics point of view to the transformers committee, to the power generators and all that. So that's important to actually remember that You cannot be an expert in an area, but you may have a small piece that's very critical to the conversation. You don't have to be the top dog all the time. So that's to the point of some of the questions you had. That's an important piece. So to get through the few words that I wanted to share with you, having looked at the questions you guys prepared, they were really great. And I'm keeping it to 10 minutes is hard. I agree. So one of the things I wanted to ping on first is the technical breakthroughs. I come from old school. I've been around for a long time, and you folks generally in the young professional and many of you in the women in engineering are having a whole different world. So some of my learnings are applying and some do not at all apply. But the two things that really changed the industry that I think is great to allow everybody to participate, women, young people, globally, everything, is hybrid meetings like we're having right now. This is huge. We didn't have this before COVID. It's massive. And then also the other technical point that I wish I were young because I'd like to be playing with it more is 3D printing. And now I'm reading about 4D printing. And I'm like, that's also a way for us in the dielectrics electrical insulation area to have big impact. Because how good are all these 3D printed parts? How long are they going to last? They haven't been tested. The materials have, but the technique of making it is very different. So those are two technologies where we as dielectrics engineers can make an impact, and it can come from anywhere in the world. Okay. So those are the two main things. And the quick point I want to make with the hybrid meetings, my experience was a very steep learning curve. I was the treasurer for EIC 2020, which was a co-locating with Power Modulators conference. So it was a huge, potentially 600 attendee conference, huge conference. And in March of 2020, we all know what happened. The conference had to go fully virtual. In 3 months, we turned a full on-site conference into a virtual conference that had some burps and hiccups, but I think in the end did pretty good. So I think everybody in the world then also had a big change. So here we are now. But I learned in that is my background and understanding diversity. I would cut my teeth at GE Research, and they taught you very much about diversity because they're a global organization. But what I figured why our 2020 conference worked so well was we actually had the full enchilada, shall we say, of diversity. We had men and women working on almost equal numbers, actually, on that committee. We had global representation from all parts of the world that were helping participate. And then we had what I call business diversity as well, which is we don't think about, but it's kind of important. And what I mean by that, we had people from academia, we had industry types, we had government types that all have different ways of approaching a conference, but we all had to work together to suddenly turn an entire conference around. So we learned a lot about one another very quickly. And even in industry, we have OEMs, you have users, you have suppliers. So you can keep this diversity umbrella can actually keep breaking down in bigger and bigger pieces. And yes, I would very much want to focus on women in engineering and young professionals because you guys are doing a great job in here. But I also want to remind us that diversity means a lot of different things. It all depends where you're at. And then some of the other things is I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, you know, I've gotten successful in my career. Lots of people know me in DEIS, and they're asking me, how did I do that? How did I become a trailblazer in one of the questions? And I realized it's a lot of me. I'm just a bull in a china shop. I just keep pushing forward. But I'm also open to people. I like to make people laugh. I'm seeing some of you smiling and laughing a little bit. And then I love that. That's important. And reflecting the last week or so while I was looking at these things and reflecting on some of my more successful projects, it's always been about making that personal connection. And that's critical is to make, and it can be as simple as like I work with people on the shop floor, teaching them how to make something. I'm going to talk to them for 10, 15 minutes and probably never see them again. But I try to ask them how they like something, what did they have for lunch today? What's their favorite person? Something that's simple to make a connection. And it's surprising to me. I've gone back to some of these shops and those people remember me because I asked about them. And that's, to be honest with you, as a woman in engineering, that's what you want. You want them to remember who you were. And by the way, extend that to, it's okay to not have an answer right in that minute. We're so used to being engineers and technicians and scientists. We got to have an answer right this minute. You got to be professional and perfect. It's okay to say you don't know, but get the answer and get back to that person. And then they're going to remember you because you said, I don't know, they're going to have remembered that because we hardly say that. But the fact that you found an answer and got back to them. So to me, that's, you know, I strongly suggest that as anybody actually in the industry to do that. But as women, we have a hard time saying we don't know because, and I'm seeing all of the women on here nodding, and I'm like, it's really hard for us in the industry to say that, but it's okay as long as you follow up with the answer. And by the way, if somebody doesn't like your answer of saying you don't know, it's probably not somebody you're going to have a good working relationship with anyway. So it's okay. You know, you don't have to be perfect for everyone. So to kind of summarize, I had a whole lot of other notes in here. It's really communication is key. Integrity is key. Being personable is key. And yeah, you got to be, you know, step up in people's faces a little bit. And by the way, find somebody when you're young, find someone, and there's lots of us who've been around for a long time, who's willing to be a mentor. It doesn't mean they're going to mentor your entire career. They might mentor you for 2 days at a conference and introduce you to a couple people. It might be an hour that they just talk with you and ask you questions. That's huge. I had that. I had some individuals who are brilliant in the field and still working here came to me and they took and gave me a little bit of guidance. And some of it was a lot of time. And some of it was literally that over a cup of coffee or a beer. But that's important. And you can seek that out. You can walk up to somebody and say, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about what you do in your research? Maybe I can ask you some questions. And when you find the right person, they're going to spend some time with you and it's going to make a difference for both of you. It's always about making it a difference for both people. So I think, you know, I could go on, and I'm not going to go on because there's no need to. I think I made my main points is we're all people in this industry. And remember that we're all people. Make those connections. Treat everyone as somebody who's you want to talk to. And by the way, if you have a hard time understanding someone, because we all have different accents, I speak really fast, so I often lose people because I speak too quickly. If you don't understand, ask them to repeat it, and then make sure you repeat back to them what you think you heard so you can get a dialogue going. And that often will get you over some of the communication issues. And actually, by the way, connect you with somebody because you've taken the time to be sure that you're being heard. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the group here. And thank you again for the opportunity to present, or rather to chat with you. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I totally agree on the points that you have just mentioned. It is very important to go out there, network with the people, and they recognize you for the way how you interact with them. And during the YP webinars, we had one of the speakers, since you mentioned about mentoring, it was John McDonald. So he just said that don't be afraid of, you know, just going up to someone and ask them to mentor you. You shouldn't be afraid. What do you have to lose? Nothing, right? So you just have to go up to them and ask them to mentor you. And today he's my mentor, and he gives 1 hour of his time every once in 2 weeks. It's just very impressive when you see that he is a person who has been in IEEE for more than 52 years, and he dedicates 1 hour of his time just to talk to you, just to listen to you. It is not necessary for him, but he still does that. And just making that little effort, it just, as a beginner, I'm a very beginner in the volunteering section of IEEE, and for me it's a huge thing when it is coming from such an experienced person. And I know I'm going to do the same for the rest of the people out there who are going to volunteer in women in engineering, no matter in DIS or any other domain. If someone comes to me to ask for help, I'm definitely sure I'm going to do it, and I hope everyone does it too here in IEEE. Thank you so much. It was very inspiring. Let's move on to our next speaker, Nandini Gupta. Professor Nandini Gupta obtained her PhD from the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore in 1998. She has worked as postdoctoral researcher at the University of Windsor, Canada, and Eindhoven University of Technology, Netherlands. She has worked as a visiting faculty at the University of Windsor, Canada, as well as the research and development engineer at EMRC Bangalore. She is currently a professor at the Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, and her major areas of interest are dielectrics and insulation materials, nanodielectrics, partial discharge, training in solid insulators, and applications of plasma discharges. She has long served as an IEEE volunteer in various capacities, as well as for IED. Without further ado, the floor is yours, Professor Nandini.
Thank you, Sneha. I have a small presentation. Let me try and share that. Are my slides visible?
Yes, it is visible. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to focus on something that I have actual experience in, and that is inclusivity in Indian engineering education. Now, I'm going to make a few points which are actually obvious, which have been touched upon by Brian as well as Nancy. What is the reason that we need inclusivity in engineering for? The first case is, of course, the question of equity and fairness. Historically, there have been communities which have been deprived, and unless we have certain corrective actions, it is not going to correct the imbalance. And that is a problem, because what we often see in India and abroad is that the demographics of the region is not necessarily mirrored in the student population or in the engineering population. For example, in the case of US, the situation might be that you have a disproportionate number of white males. What it is in India, I'll come to later. So this is a problem because you do not reflect the correct demographics, and in not doing so, you lose out on talent. You are not selecting the best people from all the communities, so we are losing out on valuable human resources. Having said that, in the case of engineering, I think we should make the point that technical competence is not the only thing that is important. It is necessary, but it is not sufficient. And over and above technical competence, we need cultural competence, because the diversity that we can bring into engineering by including diverse people from diverse backgrounds would serve as an enabler. In most professions, especially in engineering, there is a gap to be bridged between the professionals, those who are practicing the engineering, and the people whom they are serving. And unless you have the cultural competence, you will come up with solutions which may be technically sound, but which will fall through. And we have seen that in Indian context, where we import solutions from abroad and try to implant them in the Indian scenario, and that fails completely, because unless we have the cultural competence, it is not going to be a solution that is feasible. It is not going to be a product that is usable, and it is not going to be a situation where the citizens are comfortable using this. So the point that I'm trying to make is that with technical competence, cultural competence in case of engineering is very important. And of course, last but not the least, diversity is important to democracy. Now, if I come to the question of inclusivity in the Indian context, it is very interesting. When India became independent in 1947, the situation was such that all engineering and all technology were with the British. And so the idea was that in order to move forward, India has to have a lot of competence, has to move forward in the technical field. So there was a lot of impetus on technical improvement. And as a result, there was a lot of state-sponsored investment in engineering education. One of the actions that was taken was there were a large number of premier institutes which were established. These are the IITs, among other institutes. There were IITs, the Indian Institute of Technologies. We started with 5 of them. We now have 22. These were supposed to be premier institute of technical training. They were supposed to concentrate only on meritocracy, which is a good thing, because meritocracy is supposed to have a democratizing influence. But something very interesting happened. These institutes were institutes of national importance. They had a lot of autonomy. They had a lot of privilege. And they were training people for white collar jobs, which were previously only the purview of the colonizers. A consequence of this was that we had, for a very long time, even after independence, an intimate linkage between caste and merit. So even when I joined IIT Kanpur is one of the 5 IITs that was set up, established right after independence. I joined IIT 20 years ago. And even then, the student population and the faculty population, of course, was overwhelmingly upper caste in composition. We were talking about merit, but typically the IITian was coming from upper caste families of bureaucrats, school teachers, academics, which people who had a lot of privilege and people who already had a lot of knowledge capital. And this continued. So we were talking about merits, but we were nurturing a population of upper caste and moreover male. So IITians were overwhelmingly upper caste and male, and that is what was the situation largely when I joined the institute. In the last 20 years, this has changed considerably. We have had a lot of affirmative action. We now have reservation seats reserved on the basis of caste, on the basis of economic class, physical disability, even very recently gender. So what we have definitely seen over these years is that the student demographics has changed substantially and conspicuously. This is what we wanted. This is what we keep talking about. So how has that affected us? Have things become better for us? Okay, the first thing that we talked about is that we did not want to lose out on human resources. That I think has happened. Whether we have better students, it's too early to say, but we certainly have more students. We have more students from diverse backgrounds. They come from different communities, different cultural backgrounds, different economic backgrounds. And I do not have any hard data, but from my experience and from talking to people around me, I think what I can say is that because we are dealing with so many diverse learning techniques, learning abilities, we have been pushed to be creative in our teaching skills. We have changed the pedagogy methods. We have had to, especially in postgraduate teaching, we have had to become more student-centric. We have had to tweak our research problems so that we can get the best out of the students we have, who might be learning in a different way from the way that we have been conventionally used to. And I would also like to think that at least for a section of the student population, there has been an increase in cultural competence. There has been an awareness of the ethics of engineering profession in terms of a responsibility towards society, environment, and social justice. It is, it is too early to say that it has had a very large effect, but we are already seeing some changes. I think to have more meaningful technical impact, we need to wait for some time. It is too early right now, because the change that we now are seeing at the student level, it needs to be reflected at the top and hopefully at some point without intrusive measures. Before stopping, I need to bring back the discussion to one of the questions that Sneha asked us. How has my journey made any difference to people who have come after me? Yes, I am not part of this majority population because of the simple fact that I am a woman in engineering. And for the first 15 years that I have been here, I was always one of at most two faculty in my department. I have still come from a position of privilege. So if I talk about my experience, I have had difficulties. I have faced sexual harassment. I have faced gender discrimination. But at the same time, I have had a lot of support. I have had the privilege to be able to overcome these situations. And if I am to answer the question that what have I done that has made the most impact to or help people who come after me the most, I would say it is not anything that I have done, but that I have been present. I have been present on committees, in admission committees, on policy-making bodies. I have been teaching, and even if I have not brought my views to the table, which of course I have, but just by being present there, I have made people aware of at least one section of the diverse population. That is, I have made people aware of women, if not all sections of the minority communities. Number one. And as for my students, they have seen me at work. They have seen that it is difficult, so they have no rosy picture of what it is going to be. They have seen that it is difficult, but they have seen that I have persisted, so they know that it can be done, and they know that it can be done without being a superwoman. I think that is the most important thing that I have done, and I think when the diversity that I'm talking about is also reflected in the top leadership, we will see the effect of diversity in Indian engineering. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nandini. It was very, very impressive, the journey that you have gone through, and I hope that all the women audience and everyone who's listening to you are going to be motivated by your journey, and hopefully we can bring some changes into DEIS as well with respect to this. So let's move on to our next speaker. We are delighted to have our next speaker, Wafa Ben-Mida. She's a London-based software developer, currently working as a software developer for Ocado Technology. Previously, she had experience of software quality assurance for the BMW Group. She is a strong advocate of female participation in STEM careers and has given talks on the subject in conferences in Tunisia, Poland, Germany, Switzerland, and USA. She is also the chair of Women in Engineering Committee for the Region 8, that is Europe, Middle East, and Africa for IEEE. Without any more delay, we invite Wafa to captivate us with her expertise.
Thank you, Sneha. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, yes.
Great. So yeah, today I'm gonna just talk about something maybe related a bit my work. So it's about warehouse fulfillment, improving diversity and inclusion, robotics. Sneha already presented what I'm doing and everything. So I'm originally from Tunisia, I'm based in the UK. I'm a software engineer at Ocado. Maybe not everyone knows Ocado. So Ocado is a technology-led global software and robotic platform business, providing end-to-end solution for online grocery around the world. Also a chair of women engineering of Region 8. And at the same time, I've graduated as electrical and automation engineer. So that's all about me. I'm gonna just talk about what we have now, and so especially after COVID, what we used to doing. We all live in era of instant deliveries. We all want our package to be delivered for the next day, of course. If not an instant delivery, and maybe that's in the future. So to ensure that these deliveries can be made on time as promised, so companies use a number of warehouses solutions such as distribution center, cold storage, pack and pick, and safe warehouses, and also banded warehouses. This is like $477 billion market, and it's rising by the time, especially now after COVID, actually. But to continue ensuring that the costs and the process and the resources required to operate these warehouses are optimized, more and more warehouses are using robotics process over automation. So basically, to create an automation within warehouses, as number of technology are generally adapted, these are divided into your digital process automation and physical process automation. Starting with the physical process automation, including the robotics over and other smart equipment, so thus including the smart shelving, pallets, equipment of sortation, some others like the robotics, the GTP, which is the goods to people system, and so on. So basically, this is the process for the physical process automation, which is based on the robotics. And on the other hand, we have the digital process automation side, where you have the stuff using tablets, smartphone, and that's actually to connect to the cloud to store information relevant to the software and application. And of course, as we move forward, we utilize a data analytics platform to further optimize the process. But now that AI and machine learning are becoming the norm, actually, that present with opportunity to improve even the future. So let me just give an example of that, that you have a warehouse with hundreds or even thousands, or basically in some cases, sometimes with the small products, you have the hundred of thousands of that product or items in the warehouse. And you need to make sure that they are assembled in the right manner. We need to know where each and every item is in the large warehouse. Otherwise, you won't be able to find it whenever the order is placed and you need to pick that item. So basically, you need to find in the fastest way possible to retrieve the product and put it in the box or a tote or whatever is gonna be shipped to retrieve, to send it to the shipment. And for that, it's very important that if you are using a robot, you are able to calculate the fastest route possible in real time to any equipment's combination. It could be one or two or maybe 50 products. When we order basically online, it easily goes over 25 items or 30 items, and you need to be able to have a logic associated with it so your robots can actually find all the equipments which could be in different part of the warehouse. So to put it in a box and then within the agreed time that being set and framed, we need to ship it. This is where all of this technology is coming to play, the use of warehouses management system. So to know where everything is, to use a mobile scanning devices for the robots to scan and confirm that they are picking the right product that is needed. So in that case, it's the IoT sensor, and to be careful that robots not hitting each other while they are trying to pick up all the items or the products that is needed, and to know about the general environment you need, a navigation system so that the robots can route and move efficiently, and then you need to wireless telemetry so that they can communicate with the backhand system. All of this is just a complex ecosystem works in the warehouse so that you can get your order in the next day or the day that you have set it up, basically. So I will try here to be a bit quick and not go too much in detail. So here is some areas where the artificial intelligence and the machine learning opportunities have been identifying, and they are actively being either procedure or developed for the first one. We have the GTR, which is the goods to robotics, which is operational autonomously identify the order item in totes throughout computer vision algorithm, and then command the robot to interactively pick and place the item in the order bin or a box, or a tote or whatever is in that warehouse. The machine learning and AI-based approach to build a knowledge of how to properly detect and position the robot and picking tools in the optimal position and orientation. That can increase the reliability and effectiveness of the computer vision. In addition, emerging sensing technology like the tactile sensing and optical sensing and the tool level can assist in providing sensor feedback of successful pick and transport of item without drops or without the product getting damaged. So picking also using a robot is very hard. So you have to have a sensor as well that it can detect if that item is fragile, so we don't need to get it damaged. So all of that, it needs to be done basically. And secondly, we have many distribution center still rely on traditional allocation strategy to keep pace with increasing demands, such as first in, first out, like a FIFO, or first expired, first out, and minimizing touch. While these techniques can offer some relief, they are not sufficient to handle today's challenge on their own. So the warehouse's execution system now leverage machine learning algorithm and artificial intelligence to make intelligent storage and retrieval decisions that optimize the automated system to meet throughput and system responsiveness goal. So the machine learning and the AI techniques are they give a business an intelligent set of tools for maximizing the effectiveness of the goods to people or goods to robotics and the fulfillment process. Lastly, we have the demand and order are allocated and assigned to the station along with the factor like operation rate and picking, shipments, cutoff requirements, and consistent at each station. And for the improving the diversity, I'm gonna just mention here something that we have done in my company. So whatever we have, it's very important that we ensure that we have robotics is being used more and more as artificial and machine learning are becoming the hot topic of the day, and a lot of resources and time is being spent on them. So we need to ensure that we get the best of minds to come together to solve the challenges in this area, and that we can only be it can be only be done if we promote people from all the background, all the genders, and everyone, to encourage them to come to STEM career and get involved in these exciting fields. So to support that, I actually also volunteered in Women in Tech within my company, Ocado. And recently, actually last week, we hold an event, which is the hackathon. And usually that's what we do. We do host events to promote STEM career and STEM subject. So basically, this event was inviting school children. They were from 10 to 18 years old, and there were about 30 attendees. Basically, the event was about creating a robotic through an application using 3D, and then giving them like a problem in Ocado that we want to like pick up stuff from a box to another box, or we want to make it in a route that robots, they don't hit each other where they are going to get an order or to get a product. And they like I mentioned solution, and then they were like giving a they mention a problem actually in Ocado, and then they give a solution how to resolve it and try to sell it to Ocado. I was very impressed how the 10 years old kids, they were like giving a lot of ideas, and how they were actually presenting and telling us, look, you have this issue and this is the solution. The robots needs to be in this way, how they did make it in the 3D, and this is the way the robots needs to pick up the stuff. And some of them, they were using the magnets. They said some products doesn't need a magnet, so we need to find another solution. And it was really wonderful to see this kind of girls. And basically the first one who won actually the prize, she was a girl 10 years old. And that was really impressive to see this generation, how they are. So these events actually, they are especially useful to allow children from all walks of the life to see the opportunity and see the STEM in action, basically, and that can encourage them to participate more. We also have the We Start program as well. So the We Start program is a program is global in where it's a pre-university outreach program and was developed to address the growing concern that at a young age, girls are encouraged from career in mathematics, science, and engineering. We have some sample as well as a STAR programs that we try included in many events that happening throughout the year. We have the classroom activities, humanitarian projects, competitions, hands-on activities, training of pre-university teachers, mentoring, and public awareness. I really encourage everyone for this program. It's very good, and I always try to include it in every event and have school girls involved and having a competition or anything we set it up. So yeah, if you want to know more about it, please visit this website. And basically, I'm gonna leave you with this. Hopefully this won't be our future, but robotics actually will be the norm going forward, I think.
Thank you so much, Wafa, regarding the presentation that you gave about your work and all the volunteering that you have been doing in Women in Engineering. Hopefully more and more people are gonna join hands. And Wafa made me realize that Women in Engineering is not about, not only about girls. So she has even male members in her committee, which was pretty. I met her in one of the conference in the month of May. That's when I saw her, how she had not only the female members, also male members who are supporting the females in the committee. And that's how it should be. And I also encourage all the DEIS male members as well. It is not only for the females. Please do join the Women in Engineering Committee. We are also looking for members. So don't hesitate if you want to be a part. You can always get in touch with me. And for any activities within Region 8, Wafa is here. She's an amazing volunteer. Thanks again, Wafa. So with this, we'll move on to the Q&A session. First of all, I would express my gratitude to all the speakers for delivering such an amazing and inspiring presentation and for sharing your valuable insights on the topic that we had proposed. So now we'll proceed to the Q&A session, which will be handled by Dr. Moyen. Dr. Moyen, he has received his PhD in electrical engineering from Virginia Tech in 2022, and currently he's the high voltage scientist at Avalanche Energy Seattle, and he's also the USA and Canada representative for the DEIS Young Professionals Committee. Over to you, Moyen.
Thank you, Sneha, and thank you all to all the presenters for their great presentation. I want to actually start with a question myself, and then if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to write it in the chat box, and I'll make sure to ask the question. Some of you folks mentioned the discouragement of the women in engineering, and I feel part of it is because of the stereotypes that we've made in the past about the relationship between men and engineering. And I wanted to know, what do you think about the way we should handle this with the next generation? Do you think the world is evolved enough to basically do the next generation also think that way? Or is there any steps we should take to prevent that from happening again? I think Nancy
Anyone can take up the question, yeah.
So you're saying how can we address to have the next generation be a little more inclusive, shall we say, for women? Is that correct? Yeah.
Correct.
I think it very definitely depends on the region of the world, because some regions are more advanced than others. I know I can speak to my local area, not only United States, but local in New York State. One of the schools we have programs where you get to bring your kids into work day. That's a good thing to do, and have more daughters involved in going to those kinds of functions. But what I'm doing actually at the high school level is I have high school students who come into my lab and they get to see what it is and turn the dial to blow something up because I got high voltage test sets, you know. And I did it with a couple of seniors that asked for that privilege to do, and it happened to be 1 girl and 3 guys. But I'm realizing now maybe I need to, one, reach out to them and offer it so that they're not just the brave ones that are asking, but also maybe go down into more the elementary school or middle school is what we're thinking, you know, the 10, I'm sorry, the one individual was talking about how she had done stuff with the 8 to 10-year-olds. I'm like, that would be exciting to do as well. So on an individual level, I'm seeing where I can make an impact, because I definitely have one person who's thinking about going on to do electrical engineering because he's like, I didn't know it could be so fun. All he thought it was computers, you know, and I'm like, no, we get to go into everything, and it opened his mind up. So I'm not addressing your question in a global sense, but I'm kind of thinking I'm very much on a one-on-one kind of person anyway. I'm like, what can I influence? Because I can't influence the world, but I can influence something locally. And so that's what I'm starting to do, and it's fun. Actually, one last comment, anecdotal comment is my best friend and her husband are, we have a battle. I'm an electrical engineer. She's a chemical engineer. He's a civil engineer. So, you know, we all have which one's the best. And they built a hand-built Van de Graaff generator with salad bowls, metal salad bowls to be the top, and brought it into the local elementary school and had everybody's hair on end, and boy, did it generate a lot of interest. So, you know, it can be as simple and as fun as that, just to get kids to see that science, and add to it, women can see that science is fun. I'm sorry, I'm going to do one last comment. As I went to a community college, which means when I got out of high school, I went just to a 2-year school to get an associate's degree. And I got it in chemistry technology because women were not encouraged to do engineering. But every class I took the engineering classes because I could take whatever ones as long as it was science. And I actually challenged some of the engineering guys to say, I will take whatever class you pick and I will beat you in that class. And I did in 2 different classes. And so that's where my tenacity comes from. But it was fun because it was a really hard class. So we had to study together, but it gave me a level of, you know, work even harder. So, you know, there's also that kind of thing. Make it fun, you know. The guys are going to always think they're stronger, bigger, better. Yeah, once in a while they are, but sometimes they're not. So, you know, that's to give you a couple anecdotes, and the answer, in my opinion, is to really reach out and do what you can locally, as Vasa did. So that was great. Thanks for listening.
Thanks. And I'll make sure not to ever compete with you, Nancy.
It still holds.
Yeah. So I want to ask a question from Brian, because that's more of a personal curiosity. And that is, like, how do we compare in terms of demographics with the other IEEE societies? Are we doing better or worse, or we're on the average?
Yeah, actually, that's a question I too had. How does the female participation in the other IEEE societies compare region-wise?
Brian, you are mute, I think.
Okay, from my own understanding and knowledge and kind of research that I've done from the society point of view, the smaller societies, we are one of the smaller societies. We're obviously not doing as well as other societies. That's the bottom line. If you've got a society like computer engineering, they have got tons of females and tons of males, of course, but there's a much better spread. Even if you look at some of the smaller societies, the Ferromagnetic Society, they've got more female representation than we do. Now, electrical power, I think if you look at their percentages, they're still small, but they are obviously more women going for that kind of area than dielectrics. I want to share an interesting anecdote with you, and it does touch on what Nancy's just talked about. I've got 2 daughters, twin daughters, that have just gone to university this year. They've started at the age of 18. Now, over the period of me as their dad saying to them, what do you want to do? Over and above that, I've been asking them, what do your teachers tell you about vocation and the future? And not once did any of them talk about engineering. That's the reality. Not one of the the you know, the people that are given the special task for career development at school, they may have given it lip service to say engineering, but they weren't able to communicate or articulate what engineering is. Now, we understand, having been an engineer, you've got to have an affinity and a kind of attitude and attribute to want to do it in the first place. And I think my daughters don't have that. But the fact was they were never, ever shown what engineering really was. Now, I've got a research grant from the government just now. And in that research grant, one of the key things that I'm supposed to deliver at the end, whether I do it or not, is I'm going to go to schools to give a big presentation on what the research project was and why you should become an engineer. And that's one of the reasons why I was given the grant, but we've not got to that stage yet where it's near completion. This is what I think as IEEE themselves, they recognize this, particularly in America. Maybe not for the other regions so much, but I think they are aware of this issue. And there are committees in IEEE who are looking at engaging much more with high schools. But IEEE DEIS, I'll tell you what, we need more active people. We need membership increase across the whole spectrum, females and males, because we need more people to do more activities which are relevant to the discipline area to make sure that we've got engineers for the future that can have an engagement in not just this, but in community, societal impact, etc., etc. And that's my little anecdote, and I hope that that's been of some help to people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
Can I add to that what Brian just said? I totally agree with what Brian you're saying, because I've seen that the bigger societies, when the computer society is not very narrowed down, or the power and energy society, it is quite a broad society, and you have people who are working in all the domains. And when dielectrics and electrical insulation, we are quite precise to what we are doing, and maybe that's one of the challenges. And secondly, with respect to the demographics, I'm not sure how it impacts, why we don't have representation in R9. Maybe we have people, it's just not, they are not signed up for the DEIS society. I see a lot of people, because even me, if you see an year back, I was not aware that you can be part of two different societies. I recently came to know when I started volunteering with DIS that you can be part of multiple societies, and it is an advantage being part of. So I think the message is not reaching out there to most of them, that you can take advantages of most of the societies are over there. And there is nothing wrong about being part of the multiple societies or getting to know the other domains you have over there.
I would just like to pick up on the point that I think Nancy shared as well, which picks up on your point, and that is it's important to make sure that you fraternize with other people in other societies. This is critical. And one of the strategies I've got, I'm meeting all the sister society presidents and vice presidents and past presidents at TAB. And one of the key things that we're going to discuss is how can we work closer together as societies and share that knowledge and get to be able to grow together in diversity in particular. So that's one of my challenges, to make sure that we can try to do that. But thank you.
Okay, any more questions from the audience? Okay. So I think with this, I have to pass it to Ashok for finishing up today's session.
Fine.
Actually, there's a question.
There is a question.
Okay,
Yeah. So Shahtaj has asked, what is the main reason we do not have so many females in electrical power or mechanical engineering, but like in computer and chemical and biomedical engineering, we have more females? Who wants to take that?
I can start with the anecdote that when I was in undergraduate, when I opted for high voltage as an elective, so we were discussing among ourselves. There were several girls, so we were discussing what should we choose. So somebody said power, and I didn't want to do power. So I said, why not high voltage? And I was told, women don't do high voltage. So I said, I'm going to do it. And the moment I said I'm going to do it, I think half the female population joined high voltage that time. When we were young, mechanical was not thought to be a female friendly department. So I think this is again a question of stereotyping. You see more women in high voltage, you will have more women in high voltage. You have more women in mechanical, you will have more women in mechanical. So stereotyping will change. The stereotype will change. We need to see women fitting the stereotypes. So we have to change the stereotypes, and stereotypes come from familiarity. So I think that's the only way we can change.
And I'd echo that, because the same thing, when I was making decisions what I want to do for a career, as I mentioned, I was told, you know, chemistry, I love chemistry. I absolutely adored it. And they're all like, yeah, that's good for you. But I was like, but I like the physics part and how it all works and all. And they're like, no, just focus on chemistry. You'll be fine. And by the way, just as a chem tech too, not even as a full blown, you know, go further in the career. But to all the conversation earlier, it is a lot about what the guidance counselors and the individuals in elementary school, middle school, high school are telling students to do, but also that piece of what they've been exposed to. Your comment you just made was, you know, you were told and you're not supposed to do high voltage engineering, but at least you knew what high voltage engineering was. I know the students who came in here, they didn't know the difference between power systems and what those words even mean. So some of it is just educating in the youth and the teachers that there's different careers out there and what those mean. And I think that will help generate more females in the mechanical, electrical areas rather than the hard sciences. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I'll add to that. It's not just about exposing the young girls, it's also about exposing the young boys.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I've wholeheartedly agree. It's exposing individuals so they can choose what works for them. Right.
Yeah, and I want to add to that
something on this. Yeah, go ahead, mine.
That I think we have some sort of a similar problem with DEIS in general, because I knew quite a few people who are doing research in the same areas that we focus on in DEIS, but they didn't know about DEIS at all. So I think we need to do a better job in advertising the society and the great activities that we do each year. US Now.
No, I just wanted to add something to the question that you just asked. I think it was not just back then, Professor Nandini and Nancy. I think even back when I was a bachelor student, I think it is all about perception. You see, since you're a kid, you watch movies and you see the mechanics. It is only male dominated. You see only the mechanics in the movies you see. Then you have as a kid, you have that image in your head that this field is only for men. Chemistry or the bio field, it is, you see all the females. That's how, as a kid, you have picturized yourself with respect to the domains. And when it is your time to select the domain, you think that, oh, mechanical engineering, it's mostly for boys. So girls have no place in there. So you see, so you're left out with electronics and then computer science. So what are your options? So you are left with not more of options. So I think it's more with how, since so many years they have portrayed how men take up the subjects or how they have portrayed everything. It's not just what you teach at home, but also how they have been portraying information in the media and how it affects the kids actually.
I would like to add something. When I was doing my bachelor's, which was very recently in 2013, when I joined, few of my friends were in mechanical engineering. There were 2 female students only in mechanical in a batch of 60, and about 10 in electrical engineering with me. So I asked them, like, why there is so less contribution, like participation of women in mechanical. So they were saying that I don't know how they see it, but it was from a girl student that they said, for mechanical and electrical engineer, we have to work outdoors most of the time. It's hard work. So if we take computer science, maybe we will sit in air conditioning and do it like it will be easy for us. So I thought maybe this is the reason, but it is a stereotype, obviously. Once in my batch, there were only 2 female candidates. In next batch, there were 5 candidates. And I don't know the scenario, but it is obviously increasing.
And that's an improvement from 0 in my time.
Yes, of course.
Great to hear. We have another question.
Wafa wanted to, she raised her hand. Wafa, do you want to add something?
Thank you, Shana. I was just going to say, we have to change our mindset that this field is for male, this field is for female. We need to raise our next generation with everything is available. Either you are a male or a female, and based on their what she wants, actually, we don't need to force them to go to electrical or mechanic. Based on what she really ambition on, what she really love to do, she needs to go and go into that.
I think you really hit the nail on the head. That's what a career is all about. It's what you're passionate about, because then work doesn't feel like work. And to your, Ashika, your comment about how, they didn't want to work outside. I'm like, yeah, but if you get to travel the world and work outside, some people would love that. So it really is what you're passionate about to connect the two of you. So I found that very funny that they said they didn't want to work outside, because I haven't worked outside in decades. So
Great, thank you, Afa. So we have a question about high voltage engineering in Indian institutions. Himanshu has asked, in India, very few people work in high voltage engineering. And in order to increase the women participation in the DEIS community, we need to encourage people for high voltage engineering. What are the key objectives for this? I think that's a Brian question.
Oh, I would maybe, Professor Nandini might be better understanding the context rather than me. I could give you my opinion, but obviously someone that lives in that context, then I can add my bit, if that would be okay.
Fair?
Yeah, I think the problem is that we seem to feel that high voltage is losing glamour. It is not very pertinent. I don't know how to address that. If we see people who are successful in research and industry, but I also feel that there is a lack of understanding about what is high voltage engineering and how it fits into the real industry. So maybe we need to make that connection, that this is the work that is happening in the power industry, which needs a understanding of high voltage or knowledge of high voltage. So probably we are too small a community, so that we are unable to make the connections, we are unable to make the impact.
Okay, I'll add my little bit to it. In the UK, I can give it from a UK context. In the higher educational institutions, we are probably well known for our power engineering degree levels. Now, in our power engineering courses, they teach about transformers, they teach about transmission, but they don't actually have time, to be honest, to teach about the high voltage side of all of that. They just presume here's a transformer, there's the turns ratio, up you go in voltage and you transmit it along a line or whatever. And that's the kind of level. Well, I don't mean to be, I'm trying to say that they don't deal with it in depth. Whereas when we get students that understand the nuances and we teach high voltage, then it makes a massive difference. And I think then students come and say, well, actually, this is really interesting. And I didn't realize you can get arcs and sparks and how to create them and how to break things down, as Nancy's lab's got in the Zap lab. And when you show them things like Tesla coils and everything else, they say, I never even knew this. What's this about? So I think it's partly getting that into an undergraduate area.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm not saying we're all good at it, but certainly we could all do better. Thank you very much.
Well, and to add to both of you, high voltage engineering hits everything. whether, and that's my tagline is micro to macro and back again, or macro to micro and back again, whichever order. Because I look at things as a chemist on a bond structure, which when you're dealing with a circuit board, depending how close those traces are, the field is just as high as it is in a power generator between two coils. But the material is completely different, as you all know. But so the fact when people say high voltage engineering, all they think is transmission lines. That's okay, you know, but there is a whole lot more to it. And cables and connections and MRIs. You don't want a white spot that's showing up on an MRI because you think it's cancer when it's just a bad piece of insulation in the system. That's what I spent a lot of time working on getting those DC fields right. So they weren't getting that because I don't want it to be on mine. So, you know, those kinds of things. So I just made a note to myself that your comment is, what is high voltage engineering? We really need to maybe start to, as DEIS, explore what that is and let the rest of the world know. We touch all of their markets, all of their instrumentations, all of their materials. And then suddenly electrical installation becomes a bit more sexy and inclusive then and diverse and hit all those different market segments. So that's just I'm going to get off my soapbox now. I did my little drum beating here, and thank you all.
I would add to that, you're absolutely right, because when I give talks for DEIS, I often do say it's about the electrical stress that we're interested in, rather than the whole global transmission high voltage networks. So thank you for pointing that out, and I will continue to remember that. Thank you.
And the final comment, which is kind of positive about high voltage, is as someone who's in industry right now, I see a lot of more projects focused on high voltage and like in need for high voltage expertise. A couple of examples when I was looking for jobs was one that I'm working in right now, which is high voltage and fusion engineering, and they need hundreds of kilovolts in a lot of companies for that matter to confine charged particles. And another application could be the hyperloop, which is basically high voltage in low pressure conditions. So I've seen a positive momentum toward using high voltage systems in novel applications. So hopefully with a better job market, I think people will be more attracted to it too. So if there are not any more comments on this, I want to go to the last question by Ayesha, which is, she said, we can shape the next generation in underprivileged societies and shape their minds toward engineering by approaching schools internationally and by providing counseling sessions by using online resources. Many students in engineering universities join engineering without the right intentions. They do it because their parents told them to. There has to be development of the right mindset. Well, this is not a question, but I think that's a valid point. Anyone wants to take up on that? Or at least, do you agree with it?
Yeah, I think we've touched on a lot of these areas, and I think we would concur that all of what we've talked about is focusing on that question as well. And certainly as a society, we want to make sure that we reach underprivileged societies and give them the opportunity to engage in this area. So yeah, thank you.
Great. So I think with this, now is the time that I should pass it to Ashok. And I don't know if Snell wants to introduce him.
Yeah, I'll quickly introduce Ashok. So I'm pleased to introduce Ashok Narayan Tripathi for the concluding remarks. He's working towards his PhD in power engineering from the IIT Kanpur, and he's also currently the India representative of the DEIS WIE committee. And he's also chair of the student branch chapter in IIT Kanpur. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. It is an honor to get an opportunity to close this panel discussion today. And we had obviously a very informative and engaging session. First of all, I would like to thank all the speakers for being here with us and sharing their insights with us and everyone in the audience. And thanks to the audience who have asked questions and listened to the speakers very calmly. This is the very first event of IEEE DEIS Women in Engineering, and I'm sure many more will follow. These events encourage the young audience to do something for the community, maybe give some insights and learnings to them, how community is and how we should perceive it, how we can move forward. The IEEE DEIS Young Professionals Group, formed last year, has been actively involved in various activities within the DEIS community and also in the other communities. We have been taking part in every possible events, making DEIS more visible and telling people more about what our society has to offer. And everyone agreed in this discussion also that we have to be more visible, tell people that what DEIS is about and how everything is about high voltage or high electrical stress, basically. So this will basically increase our membership, DEIS membership, and we also organize monthly webinars by the experts every month, where hundreds of attendees join to listen to the experts of their field. Next webinar is scheduled on 10th October by Delta Wald. He will talk about sustainable insulation for power system. The registration is still open. If anyone in the audience want to join, please register. We recently worked on a project to make a flip book of all the Whitehead lecturers of CIDP since 1955. This flip book will be published in the Sentinel edition of CIDP in few days' time. And at least one member of our group, of Young Professionals Group, reaches to DEIS sponsored conference. Either it is fully sponsored or technically sponsored. We reach there to organize an event for the young participants attending the conference so that we can motivate them to take up leadership in the DEIS community. And we have also started a young professionals column in Electrical Installation magazine. And here YPs, the young professionals, can share their stories to a larger audience. I invite all the young professionals to contribute for this YP column in Electrical Installation magazine. Sneha, can you please share the email ID of Alan? We believe our activities and involvement will motivate the young minds and help our community grow. I invite everyone in the audience who are not a member of DEIS community right now to join IEEE DEIS by becoming a member and being an active part of Women in Engineering and Young Professionals Group. In that way, you can give back to the community you belong to. I close by saying that it is the young professionals who will shape the future of the society. Thank you all for being here with us.
Just one last comment before everyone leaves. So as the chair of DEIS WIE, I'm truly encouraged by the enthusiasm that everyone have displayed here. It's evident that we have a group of motivated individuals who are ready to make a very meaningful impact, especially in the field of electrical insulation and dielectrics. So I invite and encourage all of you to consider becoming a part of DEIS and DEIS WIE committee and also YPs. Your unique perspectives, energy, and commitment to these invaluable assets will definitely help us further our mission of fostering diversity, inclusion, and innovation. Stay tuned for more information. Thank you once again, and we definitely look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you, Sneha.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A great day. Thanks all.